Everybody, it's Lisa with Quilting in the Valley, and today we are going to paper piece our table runner. So just as a reminder, this is the finished table runner we're going to make. Not huge. You're going to paper piece, foundation paper piece, 3 big blocks and 4 small blocks before you put this together. This is super simple, and honest to goodness, it took me less than 45 minutes to piece this whole top. It is not time consuming if you prepare ahead of time. So in your cutting directions, it'll tell you which size pieces to cut for each of your numbered blocks. So this is my foundation, and in your kits, you actually have Quilter Select foundation papers. It doesn't slip around like some of the others, so for someone new to paper piecing, this is much easier to piece with. So I just trimmed this down. Now I did not trim to inside those outer lines there. So if you'll see the dark line right here, that's the finished size of your block. This here should be a 1/4 inch outside. Don't trim into this because you want everything to be a 1/4 inch outside of this deep black line. Okay, so I'm trimmed down, and you'll see that there are numbered pieces on here. It says A1, it says A2, A3, and in this case it tells us to go out this way, A4, and then over here A5, and then over here A6, which is kind of goofy, so I didn't renumber it, but I'm going to show you how to do it just in rounds. So you're going to go A1, then you're going to go 2, then you're going to go 3, then you're going to go 4, and then you're going to go 5, and then it's going to be done. Okay, you're going to be stitching with your machine set down to a 2 millimeter stitch. You want to reduce your stitch length to 2 millimeters, and the reason for that is you want to get good perforation on this paper so that it tears out easily. Also, you want your seam lines to stay together when you tear the paper out. There's going to be a little stress on the seams, so you're going to lower your stitch to 2. You should have a Microtex needle in. Make sure you've got a Microtex needle. That's going to leave smaller holes and it'll shear through the paper easily. All right, just use your normal thread. You're good to go. There's 2 different kinds of kits that we're doing for this. We have Batik Kits. In a Batik kit, it does not matter what side of the fabric you have facing what way, because it's the right side no matter what way you put it up. Good thing about batiks. That's why batiks are fabulous to paper piece with. You also are going to have print fabrics with a wrong and a right side. So the thing to remember about paper piecing is that basically you are piecing this upside down. So your finished piece will be on the underside of your paper with the right side facing down. So if you're using a Batik kit, no big deal. If you're using the print kit, you want to make sure that the right side of the fabric is facing down on the finished seams and pieces. All right? So there's no hard way to do this, but for those of you who are new to it and you might struggle a smidge, you can just take a piece of glue. Now I'm assuming that you've read your directions and you've cut all of your pieces the way you needed to. So I just took a little smidge of glue and I put it on the outside of the center square, and now I'm going to take my little birdie block, which by the way I did fussy cut my birds, so I have a bird in the center of all my blocks. And you should see, hopefully you can see the, can you see it there? You can see that I've got seam allowance on all 4 sides. Okay, so now you're going to take your next piece, and in this instance it's going to be the gold. And for this first round, you can simply line that right up with the edge. And we're going to slide it underneath the foot, and you're going to start, my foot pedal, you're going to start right on the line, and you're going to stitch right along that line till you get to the end, and then you're going to cut your thread. Okay, so now what I have is this. Now I'm going to take this paper, I'm going to fold it back, I'm going to put it on my cutting mat. I'm going to get my add a quarter ruler and my rotary cutter, which I forgot to bring over here. Shoot. I'm going to what? I'm going to get this rotary cutter out. 'Cause I can. Well, maybe I am. Maybe I'm not. Well, apparently I'm going to get up and walk over somewhere else and get a rotary cutter because I forgot to get one. I will be right back. Oh my. And I was all prepared. I had all my stuff. Not so much. Anyway, okay, so you're gonna fold this back and you're gonna take this and you butt it right up against that paper. See how it just slides right up there? And then you trim that off. That's your 1/4 inch seam allowance. And now I'll flip that out. I'm gonna take my Violet Craft seam roller or whichever you're using, and I'm just gonna squish that nice and flat so I have a nice flat seam. And then I'm gonna take my next piece, one piece, and I'm gonna do the same thing. So I'm gonna real quick do all 4 of these, and then I'll show you how to do the next one. Make sure I didn't there. Come on, one more. There. Okay, I'm doing the same thing. Fold my paper back.
Do you want to show them how they can make sure that their fabric covers?
Your fabric should cover because I've given you really generous cutting directions. But to Carol's point, if you were getting a paper piecing, foundation paper piecing pattern that did not have pre-cutting in it for you, you would calculate how big your pieces needed to be by measuring from the fold, so you know because that's a straight line, it's gonna fold out this way to the deepest part. So you would measure from here to here, and you'll see that's about 1 3/4 inch, and then you're gonna add at least a 1/4 inch on either side for your seam allowance. So for this particular piece, I would cut one a minimum of 2, that's 1 1/2 inches. 2, maybe 2 1/4 inches, and that's gonna cover that way. And then again, to go this way, I'm gonna measure at the widest point, and you're gonna see it's about 2 3/4, so I'm gonna go about 3, 3 1/4, 3 1/2 for that piece. Always cut generously.
And then if you hold it up to the light, they can see that you have covered that.
And we're gonna see that more on the next piece because the next piece doesn't line up straight. These pieces line up straight, so these are easy. So I'm gonna get through these 4 pieces and I'm gonna show you how to hold the remaining pieces up to make sure you have them lined up in the right place. I'm gonna fold that back. I'm gonna butt that up and cut that off. And seam that, not with a rotary cutter. That would be bad.
That would be bad.
That would be very bad. Okay, and then this 4th one, again, it's a straight line up, so I know this is gonna fit. So I'm just gonna put it under there and stitch it. Okay. Fold that paper back. And this paper you're gonna cut away and tear away anyway, so it doesn't matter if it gets kind of all beat up in the end. All right, so now I have my centerpiece. So here's where we get into some interesting things. Those are wrinkly. Okay, so here's where we're gonna get into some interesting things because the next piece goes across this way. How am I gonna know I have it in the right place? Well, I can see where my line is, and I know that it's this. By the way, I cut these fussy cut as well, and I want my birdies facing in. So if I lay it like this, like I want it to face, and then flip it down, I know it'll be the right way up. Okay, so this piece is gonna have to cover this line, right? Can they see that?
Yes.
Okay, it's gonna have to cover that line right there. So you need to make sure that you have at least 1/4 inch from here to here, and that you're past both of your borders on the sides, okay? So I have it in place. I'm gonna get it underneath here. And I'm gonna start right on that line. Stitch right on that line. And I'm gonna cut. And now, before I cut this, I'm gonna flip it up and make sure that I've covered this whole piece,
You can see that.
which I have. All right? So now I know I've covered it, so I'm gonna fold this back, slide that up, cut those off, and out I go. And I'm gonna touch the iron to these fabrics because they're a little bit wrinkly. Like they was smooshed. Okay. Okay. All right, so now I want my next piece, which is also smooshed. Guys, this is life. This is real life. We don't do scripted shows here. Okay, I want my birdie facing up. So I'm gonna put it there, I'm gonna flip it down, I'm gonna turn it over, and I'm gonna come in here into this light and make sure that I'm covering from side to side, and I have 1/4 inch-ish. Put it right under there. And if you feel uncomfortable about flipping that down underneath there, I'm not using pins or glue. If you feel uncomfortable with doing that, you can always use a little dab of glue from your glue stick, or you can use pins to pin it in place. You would pin it right through the middle of the piece so that you don't get your needle caught. Okay, I'm checking again. I'm good.
Perfect.
Open it out. I gave you guys really generous cutting directions, so you should have plenty of fabric. When you cut it, you should make sure that you don't have your fabric flipped under so you don't cut your fabric too.
This is a good learning.
This is a very good learning. I did this 3 times yesterday on the blue fabric.
And this is when you make your stitches smaller, it is very hard to,
Yes, this is a pain in the tuchus.
yeah.
That's okay.
But it shows you can still rip it out and do it again, and it doesn't
Oh.
hurt the paper at all.
I did it 3 times on one place yesterday.
Really, Lisa decided to do this so that you would all know.
Yeah, that's right. Sure.
Yeah.
I meant to
They're
do
learning.
that.
They're learning from this.
I meant to do that.
This will happen. If you sew, you rip.
Yes. All right.
There we go.
Okay. Let's try that with another birdie. Okay. Now I know my seam allowance is already cut, so I can just lay it on there. I am good to go. I'm stitching on that same seam line. The paper is fine. So this Quilter Select stuff, it's a fibery kind of stuff, so it's different from Carol Doak. It's not slippery, so you shouldn't have your pieces slipping around, which is a good thing. Okay. I'm squishing my piece, and I'm getting my other birdie. I'm not gonna get much birdie there, but that's okay. I still want them facing the same way. Okay, and I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm coming under here. And I'm gonna make sure I'm covering my seam on both sides, which I am. I'll slide that under there and stitch this one. Let's see, do I have some birdies left?
Are these all ready to go over here for something else?
Yes. Okay, I'm making sure I'm covered. I am. I'll just have to cut another piece of birdie. weirdly enough, that's gonna work.
Oh, no.
Weirdly enough, okay. All right. It covers my seam line. Oh golly, you guys. You can't make this stuff up. All right, this is supposed to be binding, but we're gonna have this be this instead. Is there a birdie on here?
Kinda, sorta.
Kinda, sorta. I'll do this. I'm probably not gonna need that much binding anyway. Okay, there we go. Go there. And there. Slide her under. Okay, now let's see if I can manage to do this without cutting my piece off, for crying out loud.
Oh, woohoo.
Woohoo! Okay, so here's the joys of paper piecing. Look at how sharp those points are. That is the joy of paper piecing. All right, so we're on to round 3. Round 3 is going to be a little bit tougher because we're going on a dark fabric. So let's start on this one I already chopped off. And we'll make sure we get this angle right. So here you go. I'm coming across. I can see that angle, making sure I'm covered. Under it goes. Okay, and we'll flip it up, make sure it covers. It does. Fold my my paper back. Come down and not much to trim on that one because I'd already cut the other one off. Flip it out and press it down. Okay, and we got 4 of these to do, so let's get 4 of these done. And like I said, this is going to be a smidge harder because you're going to be guesstimating on this if you're using this fabric because it is so dark. So you're going to kind of just guesstimate a little bit on that. Kind of look at the back, look at the front, line them up, make sure it's all good. And throughout this whole thing, this is print fabric, so I have my right sides of the finished piece are upside down, so the wrong side is under the paper. I'm gonna flip that up, make sure it covers. It does. Flip back my fabric. I got a lot to cut off on this one. Flip out. And another one. Go over here. And that is really dark. So I'm just going to line up by kind of cheating and looking over the side and making sure that I'm overlapping. It's easier with lighter fabric. On the line. Always check, make sure you're covered. It's covered. Fold my fabric back. I cut that one too. You guys, you can't make this stuff up. You know I was going to say something different, don't you?
Shoot, too bad that didn't go the other way. You would have been.
I know, it would have been perfect, but no. No. And I thought I was being careful that time. Holy cow. So with these big pieces, don't let them flop up underneath and you'll cut them off and have to do what I'm doing, which is a pain in the tuchus, people. A pain in the tuchus. You don't want to have to do this.
Rip it.
Rip it good.
On the frog.
Rip it good. Okay. Well, I don't have to line it up because I got a seam line. So guess that's one way to do it. Again, it just goes to show you that the paper's forgiving, so there you go. All right.
Oh!
You can't make this stuff up.
I'm glad you did that because that's how we planned it, so that they would know.
They would know not to do
Yeah.
this. You guys did notice I did have my seam ripper at the ready. Okay, let's try that again. Okay. Okay, boom, got it. Better, okay. I don't have to hurt anybody, that's good. All right, is this gonna be wide enough? It is. Isn't it?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Oh, it's not. Okay. So I need one
Yeah.
about that wide.
At least you're showing them how to measure it.
Yeah. Always cut bigger than you think you need. There is nothing worse than cutting all your fabric up and getting to this point that you have to cover and finding out that you're just short like 1/8 of an inch and you're like, really? Okay. Here's our last for this round, and again, I can't see a thing through this paper because this fabric is so dark, so I just looked on the other side and lined it up to the wrong line. So I'm glad I checked. I'm flustered.
I've never seen it.
Okay, here we go. Guys, this is what makes sewing fun. I mean, you make goofy mistakes and you're like, really? Seriously? Did I just do that?
If you're going to get frustrated, then it isn't fun. And you
That's
don't want to do it.
That's true. Who wants to be frustrated? All right, we're checking to make sure. Yeah, we covered.
Yes.
I cut a huge piece that time. I'm making sure I'm not going to cut it off. I flipped it under. All right. There we go. And I squished him. All right, we're on the last round. On this round, I had my plants facing down, whatever kind of plant that is. So I'm gonna put that so that it's facing down like that. Line her up on the right line. And again, because I can't see through this navy fabric, so what I'm doing is I'm looking at this line right here and I'm making sure that I'm overlapped. And I'm looking over here on this side and making sure I'm overlapped on this side too. That I'm just making sure I'm lined up on the right line. You moron, you moron. Okay, there, that line. So I'm making sure I'm overlapping that line. And I'm not gonna start clear out in the border because it makes it hard to trim it when you do that. So I'm starting right at that stitch line. And I'm gonna come right in here and flip it to make sure you're covered. So we're covering this corner here, and I came close on that one. That one's pretty close. Woo! It's right there, so I'm good. Okay, then I'm gonna fold it. And this time I'm gonna make sure nothing flipped up, and it didn't, so. Okay. Okay, there you go. I'm gonna take this one, and this is gonna come somewhere in that area because it's gonna meet up with this one. So I'm finding my line. I'm coming up above it on both sides. underneath there, starting at that outer stitch line. And flip it up, make sure I covered. I'm good. In here.
Sometimes you're going through a lot of layers.
Yes. It depends on how complicated your piece is, but there's some, like that one I showed you guys last night, that had some really thick seams in the middle. Ooh, I was off on that one. Okay, I'm lining up, and down I go. Okay, make sure I cover. I do. Fold it under carefully so I don't cut this one apart. Not with that. Get my seam down. Oh my. Too many pieces of things on there.
That's gonna be so pretty.
This is a pretty one. Okay. This is the William Morris one, the Morris May. With the Strawberry Thief. Strawberry Thief featured right in the middle of my blocks. I fussy cut my birdies for my blocks and my borders, or my border. I fussy cut birdies for my border too. If you got the kit from us, you got plenty of fabric to fussy cut in this for your birdies and your borders and whatever. Okay, there we go. Okay, now the block is done. Doesn't look done, but it's done. So we're gonna take this, I'm actually gonna touch it with the iron. Make sure everything is good and set.
What iron are you using, Lisa?
I am using our Panasonic Freestyle cordless iron, which I have one at home, we have one in our classroom, that's the one we like. Okay, so there's our block. You're gonna put it upside down, and I'm just gonna use this because it's got a 1/4 inch on it. Go figure. So I'm lining up that lip edge with that black inner block line. And I'm gonna trim my block down.
Show them again what line they're on.
So here's my lip edge. I guess I can do it upright. There's my lip edge. And I'm lining the inside of the lip edge on the bold black line. And that's so I get my 1/4 inch seam allowance. I can get through that. On my block. Okay, and then you have your block. There you go. And I've already made 3 of them. So I'm gonna take a look and see, let's see, this bird's facing this way and that bird's facing that way, so I'm gonna put this one down here.
So Lisa, they don't want to start tearing their paper off yet.
Nope, you don't wanna start tearing your paper off until you put your blocks together. So get your blocks all put together before you tear your, before you tear your paper off. When you go to put your blocks together, look at there, you got your 1/4 inch seam allowance is right there. So you just line them up, get them underneath there, and this time you're gonna stitch edge to edge.
And you still keep it at 2.0.
Still keeping it at 2.0. Because you still gotta tear all this paper out. Okay. And now I have the center of my table runner. Here it is right there. The other thing you're gonna make is your little corner blocks. And that is this one. Put that down there. Put that up there. Okay, so in your little corner blocks, you got the same deal going on. What am I doing? Oop. Do it on the wrong side of the paper. Don't do it on the right side. Do it on the wrong side. Put your little birdie block right in the center.
Otherwise, you'd cover up your numbers and wouldn't know where to go.
How would you know where to sew? You would not know. Okay, this is another one. It just lines up straight. So I'll just put that underneath there. Make sure I didn't fold my fabric under there. Okay, here's one. I'm gonna cheat on this one. I'm gonna put the other side on, and I'll trim off both at the same time. Okay, and we flip these up, make sure they cover, which they do. I don't need to trim my seam allowance down on this one because I really didn't give you much seam allowance on this one. Oh, and I knocked my seam roller on the floor. That's okay, I'll just use this. There. Okay. Now I'm gonna put my other two sides on. I think my seam roller is magically reappearing on the table.
Yes! Thank you, Anne Marie.
Okay, this one isn't gonna take you too long to do. You've only got 8 seams to do on this one. Okay. And then flip that out. There's my little birdie. Now I'm gonna put my outer border on this one. Just like I did on the big block, only this is a little block. This time I can see because I'm on the gold. And I'm gonna cheat again. I'm gonna do the other side. So I'll do 2 sides at once.
I call that smart, not cheat.
Okay, I'm lining up, making sure you can see that dark fabric through there. Put that under. Okay, this time I got some trimming to do. So I'm gonna come over here. As always, flip, make sure it covers. Flip, make sure it covers, it does. So then you're gonna do that. Make sure I don't have anything I shouldn't have. Like that. And then do the other side. And seam roller those down. Oops. Like so. And then I'm going to do my other 2 sides. Making sure that I'm covering that seam like so. Somebody trying to call us. Did nobody
After
home.
hours.
Did nobody home. Okay. Get my other piece, do the other side. talk to us. Okay. All right. So I'll flip that, make sure it covers. It does.
Nice.
I'll fold out. Making sure I don't have anything I shouldn't. Fold out. Making sure I don't have anything I shouldn't.
Speaking from experience.
Yeah. Oh dear. Smoosh, smoosh. I'm just gonna touch this with the iron real quick here. Okay, and then we're gonna do the exact same thing. We're gonna go in here, and I'm gonna make sure that I'm a 1/4 inch outside the seam line.
This is where you want to really make sure it's a 1/4 of an inch.
Yeah, because then your blocks won't line up. Okay, so there's that one. So when you get the 2 of those done, your cutting directions have you cut a small piece of border fabric. I fussy cut my birds to face one way and one the other way. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. I fussy cut my borders so that I have a row of birdies centered in my border.
And you're starting way out at the edge.
Starting way out of the edge on this piece. Okay. And then I'll put my other side on up here.
Paper's nice that it doesn't slip.
It is very nice that it doesn't slip. So this paper is much more expensive than the Carol Doak stuff, but for beginner folk, it's really good because it does not slip. Okay, I got borders. My birdies are all facing the same way. So I got my top and my bottom borders. And then in your cutting directions, it also tells you to cut your 1.5 inch strips for your inner border, so that'll be there. And then your 3 inch strips for your outer border. I fussy cut birdies in there too, so that'll be the outer border. You're gonna cut this to size. So you're gonna put your gold all the way around, then you're gonna put your 2 sides on, and then your 2 top and bottom will fit right in there. And then you're done. And that's all there is to foundation paper piecing.
How do they tear off the paper, Lisa?
Why, let me show you. Let's tear off some paper. So we already started on this one. So this paper says it tears out easily if you get it damp. We tried getting it damp and tearing it and found that it left more stuff in the seam, which is fine. It's gonna wash away, it's not gonna hurt anything, but it actually tore more easily dry. So you're gonna leave this paper dry and you're just gonna come down in here, right at that seam.
And if you start in the middle and work to the outside, I see what you were doing, Lisa.
Yep. So we started in the middle, and if you need to, you can take the seam ripper and just catch it and just make a little tear. If you need to, be careful you don't tear your fabric. You don't want to tear your fabric. But I find that I can actually, right at the seam line, usually just scoop my finger underneath there and just tear it right out.
And if you start in the middle and go to the outside, then it's not so hard on your stitching.
Right. And it won't distort your block. You can distort the blocks if you're not careful. So you don't want to do that. But so I just take my finger right here at this stitch line and it just pulls right up. And you can do this at this point if you want to, before you put your borders on, or if you don't want to risk stretching your blocks out, you can leave that paper in and take it out after you get your borders on. No big deal, either way. And you're gonna get a little bit of fiber left. It's no big deal. It'll come out in the wash when you launder it, which I'm assuming you will launder it at some point in time. It's just, this stuff is is fiber. It's not like paper, it's smooshed fiber. That stuff we used to make crafts out of. You used to get it wet and then you'd stick it in a mold and it would dry to the shape that you had it in the mold. It's that kind of stuff. So it'll come right out. And if you need to, on some of these little points, you can come right down in there with your seam ripper and just help get down in there. Be careful not to rip your seam. You just want to get this paper out. Just like that. Easy peasy. Okay? Well, that was our semi-disastrous paper piecing tutorial with mistakes that you know now how to recover from. You can fix it. It's no big deal. If you can't have fun with this, why do it? Anyway, okay, that's our foundation paper piecing tutorial. Thanks for watching. We'll see ya.